Good afternoon. This is Robert at Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division. Glad to bring you the Merchandiser Minute today for Friday, February the 12th, 2021. Let's take a look at how the futures closed out a week's worth of trade in Chicago. March corn down 10 cents for the week to close at $5.38. March soybeans up 6 cents for the week to close at $13.72. In July wheat, your new crop contract down 2 cents for the week to close at $6.30. We had a lot of volatility and intraday price action this week in the futures markets. The speculator money, the managed money funds were heavy buyers before the USDA crop production report, as well as the World Ag Supply and Demand report that we got on Tuesday this week at noon. We'll get to those numbers in a minute. But those funds were heavy buyers ahead of that report, very optimistic about ending stock numbers being reduced, about world supply numbers being reduced, and they really were actively buying futures. Another good example of like what you and I have been able to talk about on the phone over the last few weeks and here in this space also is to just expect lots of volatility. Again, we had big intraday ranges, as much as 20 cents a bushel in corn, for example. So our marketing is very, very important to us anytime during the year, but it's definitely very important right now to have that marketing plan written down, to have your targets in place, and to be flexible even above those targets with some of your bushels. So we can talk more about that. Please give Josie or I a call and we can discuss marketing plan options, whether it's literally using options, puts or calls, or working with forward contracts for your new crop, or selling some cash contracts on your old crop bushels. Some of the headlines this week to take note in: amazing weather, just a lot of weather, not only here in Virginia that you all are working with on the farm, but out in the Corn Belt as well. We see a lot of cold temperatures below normal, and that works its way into our world a little bit. The Illinois River this week saw some stoppages of barge traffic because of ice on the river. That certainly complicates how bushels in that area move. And we're going to watch that story going forward here in the next couple of weeks. A couple of things, outside influences that impact what we do in some ways. In some ways, they're right on the money. Inside influences: Malaysian palm oil. We know that's a big competitor to soy oil in the vegetable oil market. We did see again this week a rally in that futures, in those futures contracts, and we just know that that's really a sign of the competition that's out there for these vegetable oils, and that trickles back from the COVID food insecurity, the food inflation fears, the overall inflation fears. But as Malaysian palm oil continues to go up, we know that in many ways that can put a lot of price support under soy oil and then under soybean futures. Last week we talked a little bit about barley, and I want to talk a little bit about it again this week. It's interesting. I saw a news wire, and y'all might have seen it too, that showed Ukrainian barley prices are at an all-time high. And again, they're attributing this all-time high to just a spike in demand from from Russia. And again, here we got feed grains around the world. A lot of competition for feed grains. Again, COVID food insecurity, food inflationary concerns, as well as overall economic inflationary concerns. So just keep your eye on that. Interesting things about barley and about Malaysian palm oil and how they relate back to us. We did see this week a lot of back and forth, but we saw this week the Ag Ministry in Argentina announced that they would not be limiting any exports on their ag commodities, and they would not be raising the export tax on their producers. This is something that's been in the storyline, especially for corn, really since December. I think we actually got some value into the Chicago futures contract when Argentina first announced that they were going to be limiting or even ending their corn export program for some time. But we did get at least closure for now. That could change next week, but closure for now that they're not going to limit the amount of corn they export. So that's a story that's important for us. When we look at USDA numbers this week, separate from the crop production report, or numbers separate from the World Ag Supply and Demand report, we did see a phenomenal export sales report yesterday. above expectation for corn, for beans, and for wheat. Japan and Mexico were our top corn destinations. China and the Netherlands were our top bean sales destinations. An unknown destination in Mexico came in 1 and 2 on the wheat side of things. And a couple of kind of counteracting stories this week also. We did see a cancellation of some corn purchases for this marketing year. But at the same time, yesterday in the export sales report, we saw some unknowns, past unknowns, get switched to Japan. And a lot of times, and I've even said it incorrectly, we take for granted that unknown is always China. And it was neat this week to see that an unknown corn purchase was switched to Japan. And it just shows there's other people. We know Japan is a phenomenal customer of our ag commodities, but it was good to see that this week. Coming into the week, the Commitment of Traders report, same story. It's a broken record for a long time. Managed money, 345,000 futures contracts long corn. Managed money, 156,000 futures contracts long soybeans. Wheat, they came in at 19,000 long. So they're on the long side of all three of these commodities. We'll get a new Commitment of Traders report this afternoon, but they're still telling us loud and clear when they look around, when they look at the world supply and demand numbers, they think price is going higher, and they're showing us that by how they're betting on it. When we look at next week, we're going to keep watching on the Brazil harvest numbers. We know that they've had a lot of weather down there, wet weather. It's really slowed down their harvest pace. We're going to look for more flash sales announcements. Remember, the Chicago Board of Trade, the CME group, is closed on Monday for President's Day, so it'll be a short week next week. We also have options expire next week, and we know when that happens each month, that can make some interesting trades on the futures side. We're going to watch that. Give us a call if we can help you. This is Robert at Virginia Farm Bureau's Grain Division.